Hi guys, welcome back. Let's talk about our finishing up our collages here. Um, as a reminder, this is sort of our inspiration for what we're doing. We're doing a sort of an homage to someone that we look up to, um, using a central image of that person and then collage elements for the background. Um, this is from the original artist that is discussed in the earlier lessons. I want to show you my example, and then I'll talk about the choices that you have to make as you start assembling your pieces at the very end. So here is mine. You'll notice that mine is sort of inspired by this original artist, but it really doesn't look anything like the other artist, and that's sort of the idea. We're not trying to copy what the other artist has done, but rather we are just taking inspiration from them and then coming up with our own solutions and our own creative solutions to this design problem. So at this point, you should have already found your person, found your background objects, and then already cut them out. Yours is not going to look like this at this point. This is mine after working on it for a few hours and working to arrange all the pieces. So hopefully at this point you already have your pictures selected and you've cut them out. If you don't know how to do that, go back and watch the other videos that explain exactly how to do that part of the process. For most of us, the hardest part of this whole process is this part right here. How exactly do you arrange all these pieces in an interesting way? Okay, so you've got 4 to 8 different pictures, and you need to somehow figure out a way to combine them all together into a cohesive image. That can be really hard to do, especially since you're working with a variety of different types of images. It can be really hard to put them together, but there is a way to do it. It is not as hard as it looks if you follow some basic concepts. So there are 2 main things we're going to be looking for. I'm just going to switch my windows here and show you guys a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. When you are working with a complex image with lots of different pieces, it's really hard to decide where to put everything. How do you know where you put all the different elements of a composition? It's not easy. It's not something that's intuitive. It's something that we learn how to do. I'm going to give you 2 principles today that you're going to use when assembling together your finished collage. Okay. The first of those is the principle of symmetry, also known as balance. These are different terms, but they are related. Okay. The word should be familiar to you. It's a description of something that's symmetrical. Simply means that it's something that can be divided down the center. Okay. Symmetry has a long history in art. Artists have been using symmetrical designs for a very long time, all the way back to before the Renaissance. This is a painting by the Renaissance painter Raphael from the 15th century. This is an excellent example of what we call bilateral symmetry. Okay, bilateral symmetry meaning that I can divide it essentially down the center, and the left side and the right side are roughly equal. Okay, there are some differences. You know, the figures are not exactly the same. Some figures on the left are doing something slightly different from those on the right. The backgrounds are, a little bit different. But overall, generally speaking, the left side is balanced with the right side. Everything that you see on one side is balanced by an equal weight of shapes on the opposite side. So in some cases, you might have more details in some areas, but in other areas, you might have some bolder shapes. Regardless, I would describe this as symmetrical. It does not have to be identical, left and right, to be considered symmetrical. and certainly balanced. So this is a great example of symmetry and balance. The other main type of symmetry that we deal with is radial symmetry. So this is symmetry like the hands or the numbers on a clock. This particular example is from a Gothic cathedral, and this is what's known as a rose window. So this is a stained glass window in a Gothic church, and all Gothic churches have what's known as this rose window. It's in the shape of a rose, sort of an abstracted sort of a rose, but each of those different little pieces you see is a image made up of stained glass, and they are incredibly intricate and very, very beautiful. This is what's known as radial symmetry. Okay, so that it is not necessarily move my screen there. Let me make sure I'm still on the screen. Yeah, I'm okay. So this is there we go. This is an example of what we call radial symmetry. Okay, so in other words, it is you can still divide it down the center, but its main axis of symmetry is not by dividing it down the center. What's really happening is all of the different elements are branching out from the middle in a radial or circular pattern. So you have a series of circles that are, let me just turn this to this and this to this. Okay, so we have a series of circles that are radiating out from the center. Okay, and these are concentric circles. They are all coming from the same, they all have the same center. Concentric, meaning they all have the same center, and in your axis of symmetry is going outwards. So this is also symmetrical, but it's symmetrical in a different sort of way. So why do you care about all this? What's the purpose of all this? Well, symmetry is a great way of creating interesting and simple design. Okay, so my collage is a symmetrical image. Okay, you can divide it down the center, and the left side basically lines up with the right side. It's not exactly identical. Some of the elements in the background are pretty different. But generally speaking, it's a symmetrical image. My figure here is not, for him to be truly symmetrical, he'd have to be facing directly towards the camera, looking straight ahead with equally spaced shoulders. He's not. He's sort of off to one side. I gave him this halo around his head, also not symmetrical. It's tilted. But totally okay. I would call this a symmetrical image. It does not have to be like a perfect mirror image to be considered symmetrical. The general idea is that we are... whoops, that was a mistake. The general idea is that... occasionally my computer does this when I'm using... Photopia. It just absolutely wigs out on me. So the solution is that I close it and then reopen that file again. No big deal. There it is. So in this case, I would call this symmetrical. It does not have to be, like I said, an exact mirror copy. So for example, I have like two cats. If in your design, or if I had changed this and I had a cat and a dog, or two different cats, or a cat and a ham sandwich. I don't care what the things are. As long as the things balance each other, we can call it symmetrical. Okay. So in your final design, keep in mind, you don't have to make it an exact mirror image in order to consider it symmetrical. Okay. So symmetry is a great way to start a design. If you have no other idea, if you don't know what to do and how to start, I would start from a point of symmetrical design. Okay, you want to be able to divide your composition down the middle like so, and have the left side and the right side mirror each other, or at least balance each other out. Okay, now the problem with symmetrical design is that it often can be boring. Okay, so we have to take some measures to make sure that what we design isn't too predictable and isn't too boring to look at. Okay, if we make designs that are exactly symmetrical, with the left side and the right side perfect mirrors of each other, if you are not really careful with the things that you put into that image, it might be a little bit dull to look at. Okay, so I've avoided that in my composition here by using another principle, equally important but different, that being, let me move this, variety and contrast. Okay, variety and contrast. So when I talk about variety, I'm really talking about using a rich variety of 3 different things. Specifically, I'm looking for variation in shape. I'm looking for variation in size. Try that again. Size. And we're looking for variation in color. Okay, so the final product, I want to make sure that the different objects, the different elements that I've combined in my design have a variety of interesting shapes, a variety of sizes, and interesting variation in colors. Okay, so let's talk about the shapes first. I'll come back here and look at my original. Actually, I'll make an example over here. Let's say I have a design that has a basic figure in the center of it, like so, okay? And then I create a series of elements. Let's just say, for example, that, sorry, I'm gonna turn that off. I'm gonna turn this on. Let's say my design has a couple of objects in the background that are, this up there, fill color. Okay, so I have like an object like that, and then I have an object like this. Okay, so that's symmetrical, clearly. I have symmetry there. And then let me pick a different one. Let's say I have a color one like a shape like this and a shape like this. Okay, and then let's say I have another one that is 2 different colors. Fair enough. Let's do another one, and this one is going to have a shape down here. I'll change my fill to something different. Let's do it like that, and a shape down here. Okay, so that is clearly a symmetrical design. Okay, it has things balanced out on both sides. I've got a box over here, rectangle over here, rectangle over here, rectangle over here, rectangle over here, right? It's symmetrical, okay? But it's also extremely boring, okay? If your design is the same kinds of shapes or similar sizes, it's going to be generally a pretty boring design, okay? What I'm looking at here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes that are similar in size and similar in shape. These 2 are a bit more square than the others. For this to be a perfect comparison or a perfect example, I would have to squish them a little bit like that. There you go. Okay, so I've got 6 boxes that are all roughly the same shape and they're all roughly the same size. Okay, and then my main figure in the center is also roughly the same size. He's a little bit bigger than the boxes, but generally speaking, overall, they're all pretty close. Okay, so this, I would say, would be a very uninteresting and unsuccessful design. Okay, compare that to my example here. So here I have a pretty rich variety of different kinds of shapes. Okay, let me find a nice color to outline with. Let's go with a color that is not found elsewhere in the design, something like that. Okay, so I've got, first of all, let's talk about different sizes. Okay, so I've got these really large circles. Okay, I'm not going to be able to draw nice circles here, but you get the idea. These large circles in the background of my image are a pretty large part of my picture. Okay, those are horrible circles, but you get the point. I've got these big, large circles. They serve as the background. Okay, and they're big. Those circles take up I don't know, 90% of the picture with just a little bit of space sort of behind them. So I'm talking about these big circles in the background. Okay, and so those are large. Okay, I would also say my main subject, my main figure, is also pretty large in context of the whole picture. And then I've also got medium shapes. So the medium shapes, I would say, are things like the hands, the diamonds, the cats. All of these are like medium shapes. They're taking up, maybe like 5% of the total space of the picture, roughly, and they are medium sized. And then I have a lot of smaller details. So in the background, I've got cats with lots of smaller details. I've also got some stock symbols, tickers, graphs, various different bits of data and information in the background, as well as a lot of texture. Texture I would call details. Okay, so I have here large shapes, medium shapes, and small shapes. You need to have all three. Okay, in this example, everything was roughly the same size, and it was really, really boring. Okay, so I'm also looking for variety in not just sizes of shapes, but also in the types of shapes that we are talking about. Okay, so let me just move this up so we can see it. Okay, so I'm talking variety and contrast in size, which we just discussed, and also the types of shapes. Okay, so in this example, everything is a rectangle, all right, except for the guy. The guy obviously is shaped like a guy, but everything else in the picture are just these rectangles. Okay, it would be just as boring if they were all squares or all circles or all hearts or whatever they are. But if everything's the same shape, it's pretty boring to look at. Okay, so again, on my design, I have these really geometric circles. Okay, I have the star shape sort of glowing behind his head. I have the circular halo. And then I have the shape of the man, of course, which is totally different from those geometric shapes. And then I've got hands, I've got diamonds, I've got cats. I've got lots of different kinds of shapes and lots of different interesting forms that work together. Some of them with curves, some of them with sharp corners, some of them with kind of like organic shapes like the curves of the cats, some of them with much more geometric and precision like the graphs in the background. So all those different types of shapes combined together are way more interesting for us to look at as a viewer as compared to these, which are just these boring rectangles. Okay, nobody wants to look at this ever again, whereas I like to think that this is a little bit more interesting. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to look for is variety of colors. Okay, this example, the colors are just random and arbitrarily chosen. Okay, there is nothing in any way appealing or interesting about these colors in this composition. They are kind of gross. Okay, and they're truly randomly chosen. I did not choose them carefully at all. Here, on the other hand, I have chosen colors specifically that work well together. Okay, it's not all just one single color. It's not about making everything the same color, but it's about choosing colors that work well together. So I'm going to let you play with that on your own. But the basic idea here is two things I'm going to be looking for. Okay, two major things I'm going to be looking for. Number one, symmetry. Okay, so I can align your design and make sure that it is balanced on one side and the other. And then secondly, your use of variety and contrast. So I'm looking for both symmetry in your design and variety and contrast in the sizes, in the shapes, and in the colors that you're using. So take a good look at your design. Okay, if you have no idea where to start with symmetry. Okay, put your object in the middle and then start putting other objects behind it, but balanced on both sides. Okay, once you've done that, then you can start playing around with all the different sizes and the shapes. Okay, and that's it. That's kind of all that I'm looking for. There is another video that I have posted or am posting, depending on when you're looking at this, that discusses how to work with the layers, how to arrange things, how to work with moving things around. So I'm not going to talk about the technical side of that in this video. I just wanted to talk about the design aspect and how you come up with how you arrange all these elements. Okay, so good luck. You guys have until the end of spring break, so it'll be the week that we return from spring break. Before we get back from spring break, you should have submitted this for your third quarter grade. Okay, good luck. If you have any problems, please just send me a message. Thank you.